Hi, my name's Devaraj. This talk is called Thinking People Matter Less. When I look back at my life being in my 50s, I was brought up in the 60s and 70s. It seemed to be really, really important how well you could think. You know, if you had a good brain here in the UK, that was very, very important. You know, it really mattered how well you could think. And if you had these higher cognitive functions of mind, we had an exam called the 11 plus. And if you passed the exam, you were one of the clever ones and you went to the clever school and, you know, you got a good job somewhere and you're an accountant or something like this, a doctor, a lawyer. And if you didn't pass the 11 plus, you were one of the thickos, you went to the comprehensive and you could, you know, become a hairdresser or a builder or something like this. And this was a bit how the culture worked, with an implicit level of discrimination towards intelligent people. And it's not that I consider it so terrible, but what I see these days is that a real shift has occurred. You know, there's come on some level a confrontation between the thinking classes and the more gut-centered kind of working classes and the gut centers of one. The gut centers of one. It's as simple as that. Thinking people matter less and less. And I see this as a spiritual progression, not one that is necessarily just simple and straightforward, and we can say it's all positive, but I do see it as fundamentally a spiritual progression and a positive thing. The immense danger, I think, with thinking a lot is this constant allure that you can rewrite some of the belief systems of the world and create a better and fairer society. And I think you have to be very, very careful how you do this, because it tends to go over the top, is what I see. And when it does go over the top, then basically a lot of bad shit comes up. What basically happens is when you've been doing 20 years of sort of mind-centered middle-class liberalism, basically Donald Trump comes right up in your ass and says, I don't fucking trust you. And it's important to understand that the one state, the middle-class liberalism, is creating the other. It's creating it so that you can understand the dynamic. Here in the UK, we've got the Brexit, you know, and you know, now we're coming out of Europe, negotiating all that stuff. So I hear. What's necessary to understand is that reframing things in your mind only works if you're very, very cerebral. Basically, if you're an extremely mind-centered person, then you can reframe a lot of your emotionality and pretend it's not there. Maybe you don't even feel it. It's so repressed into your body. But for people who are more centered in the body, they cannot necessarily reframe so much. So this means that you're really limited to how much you can change society. It's got to be done with a great art. You can't do it with this blunt instrument mind just telling people they're wrong to discriminate. It won't work. It'll just come right back in your ass. And you can learn that, or you can go on doing the same kind of mistakes. I want to look at racism, you know, a hot topic in today's society. The bottom line reality for me is that racial instinct is centered in the gut. It comes from the DNA. It comes because we are not computers. We're biological beings who evolved over time, and certain traits were simply more useful to survive than others. And there are aspects of racism which that represents. That's where it comes from. It comes from a gut level distrust of outsiders. It's a protective function written into the system. If you think you can just override that by reframing it, you will create more racism. Simple as that. It will just go right back to where you are. You are deluded in this belief. What you can override is the cerebral functions of racism, the mental aspects, racial discrimination. You can stop. You can control it. You can't stop the gut level aspect of racism on its own. It won't go away. It won't go away. And that's what's, for me, very, very obvious when I look at Trump's rise to power, or when I look at the Brexit, for example. Essentially, a lot of middle-class, mind-centered liberal people have been voting for globalization and thinking it's all wonderful, living in their rather isolated, wealthy lives. And they've utterly ignored all the relatively poor people in their country who feel invaded. The reality is it's the mind versus the gut. That's how it is. The gut level is saying, no, I don't fucking trust this shit. I want my own culture. I don't want it to change so fast. And the mind is saying, no, we can just rewire all of that. We can rewire all of that. You can't rewire all of that. It won't work. You just create more hostility and conflict. You know, it's simple as that. If you want to look for who is truly responsible for wars on this planet, It is for people who repress their own anger and violence. If you repress it, it just comes back up. When you've cleared all the conflicts out of your own heart, you can create change in the world. Until then, you cannot do it. It won't work. And it's because the world is a spiritual place at the end of the day. It's a spiritual place. It's simple as that. It's not here to be changed. It's not here to be made more fair. That's not what it's about. It's about you developing and understanding on a much deeper level who you are. If you just see some conflict and you try and change it from your mind, you're just creating more shit. And you can disbelieve me, or you can come up with a, opposing viewpoint. That's your right. Absolutely. I stand up for it. But if you look, I think you'll see it's true. You'll see it's true. So, if you're in this middle-class liberal thing and you want to create change in the world, look, are you just afraid of your own unconscious? You're just afraid of your own unconscious? You're trying to promote, anti-racial discrimination, but you don't actually live multiracially, face-to-face with people. Look, get in there. Are you just reading The Guardian, New York Times or whatever, and not... do you go down the gym? Do you get engaged? Do you go boxing? Do you get engaged in gut level awareness? Because you're going to have to do this shit if you want to wield power. What I see as a reality is that it actually does not really matter what you think so much if you're not centered in your body. If you're not centered down, if you don't feel this pulse of energy here in your gut, it doesn't matter so much what you think. You can use democracy to try and make it matter. You can try and manipulate people into your own belief systems. But finally, why bother? The reality is, if you're disconnected from your gut center, it doesn't really matter what you think. And Donald Trump proves that one man who's present there can override a few million people who are objecting purely from their mind. He proves it. So you're a middle-class liberal. I'm quite a middle-class liberal in many ways. What's incumbent on me, what's necessary, is to get more into the gut level feeling, so that I can relate to the other people in my country who are not doing so good, who have conflict. This is the lesson for me. This is a huge lesson for me. And hopefully you can take it on board too, and not just go into your mind trying to change the world without looking. What am I avoiding in my own emotionality? And, am I centered in my body? Do I feel it? Am I really feeling what I say? Am I really behind what I say? Okay, that's my little Sunday chitter-chatter for today. I hope you have a wonderful day. I'm off to Brighton to teach bioenergetics, and over and out.